Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I want to talk about what's happening in Quebec. They're going under lockdown again. Curfew has been re-implemented, and this is not the first time Quebec has had a curfew. So let's get into it. So yesterday on December 30th, 2021, because we're about to hit 2022, Quebec announced a 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. curfew that would be starting today, December 31st, which is, yes, New Year's Eve. So New Year's Eve celebrations, be damned. 10 p.m. is now your curfew. So in addition to implementing an indefinite curfew, restaurants are also being closed. So if you wanted to go to a restaurant tonight, you can't. They're closing at 5 p.m. And bars, well, they've already been closed. They were closed in a prior restrictions by the government. And now also, private gatherings are outlawed, banned completely. You cannot go to your friend's house to, have a drink tonight, even before curfew. All private gatherings are going to be banned starting on December 31st. And Legault also said something a little off, but it's a mask off moment. He said if he could just put the curfew on the people that don't have a health pass, he would, but it'd be too difficult to police only some people versus others. In addition to these restrictions, they also did another restriction that is pretty worrisome, and it's unclear how constitutionally valid this type of ban is, but the government is closing all places of worship until further notice. And the interesting thing, or not interesting, but the thing about these curfews and all these restrictions, the government has not laid out any timetable of when exactly these restrictions will be lifted, when or necessarily how. He just vaguely said the curfew will be removed when hospitalizations are reduced, but didn't say exactly how much, when that might be, depending on their modeling. So he's leaving it very open door. So the Global News reports that anyone outside of their home during curfew hours could be asked by the police to justify their movement. It's unclear if this is also unconstitutional in some aspect because of mobility rights under the Charter of Rights. Additionally, the Global News says fines for breaking this curfew range between $1,000 and $6,000. So it's not cheap if you are caught without a justified reason to be outside of your home. Like I said, this is not the first time Quebec has imposed a curfew. They did this in January 9th, 2021, and it lasted until May 28th. And I lived under the first curfew. It felt like it was never ending. I would sometimes, when it was getting warmer out, like in May, it's pretty nice. Things are getting really beautiful. You want to spend your time at a park, especially at 8 p.m. The sun's still out. I would take my dog out right before curfew would start, because the one exemption was if you were walking your dog, then you could be outside. So I would take my dog and just kind of watch how many people stayed in the park after the curfew. I would post the videos about it on Twitter, and this is something the police did time and time again at multiple parks. They would drive through the parks with their police cars and be talking on the siren saying, 10 minutes till curfew, leave, you must leave, or else, you might get a fine. And it was really intimidating, I would think, for a lot of people, for police to be driving basically into them.
Couvre-feu dans 15 minutes, 15 minutes couvre-feu. La loi de santé.
So the article continues, Quebec is the only province in Canada to impose a curfew during the P word. Legault admitted bringing it back was an extreme move, but a necessary one under the circumstances. He promised it would be the first restriction to be lifted once the situation in the hospitals stabilized. Quote, We're not doing this for fun, but out of necessity to save our network and save lives. But one Reddit user kind of contradicts a lot of the things that Legault said in his press conference yesterday. This user says, reminder that the last curfew was supposed to only be a few weeks and ended up being months long. Reminder, no end date was officially given for the last curfew until around a week before it ended. It was effectively indefinite. Reminder that lawyers called into question the legality of the curfew, but this issue was never addressed. Reminder that curfews disproportionately affect minorities and poor people, who are more likely to do shift work or work at odd hours and therefore will be exposed to more interactions with the police when out after dark. Reminder that the last curfew was instated after the Christmas holidays, so there was a natural drop in cases from people no longer visiting their family and friends, which was then used to justify the curfew's effectiveness. Reminder that the Quebec government never actually published any data showing the curfew was effective. Reminder that police were giving tickets to the homeless until the Superior Court judge ordered the government to stop when someone effing died trying to hide from the police. Reminder that Francois Legault's justification for the newest curfew is it's too hard to police just the people who don't have the health pass. This Reddit poster makes a lot of extremely valid points. The curfew is indefinite, it was, and this one is as well, because there is no end date. They don't even give a timetable, like a possibility or an idea of how much reduction is required. The question of legality was never addressed. This is something to this day that's being debated, but the government wants no part in this. And also, the courts won't even take up the issue, and when they do, they are always on the side of the government. I mean, the courts in Canada have really failed Canadians and Quebecers. And it is true, the government actually did never provide any data to show the effectiveness of curfews, and a lot of other studies also show that these type of restrictions don't really work, and they can actually hinder things because then people are, all going to the grocery store before they close, because although the old curfew was 8 p.m., a lot of the stores would close at 7. People get off their work. They only have maybe an hour before the grocery store closes to get their food and have dinner. So a lot of people, there was a rush. I remember even in the wintertime, the lines outside the grocery store would be extremely long. It could take 15 minutes to even get into a grocery store. And an article from the Westphalian Times also points out that during the last lockdown, Canadian small businesses lost 740,000 jobs because of these restrictions and lockdowns. So the article says, newly released data from Canada's Department of Industry released alarming job numbers last week. Before the P, small businesses employed 7.7 million Canadians, nearly 3/4 of all employed in Canada. After more than a year of heavy government restrictions and lockdowns, 740,800 small business jobs were lost. The province of Prince Edward Island endured the worst job loss of small business jobs, closely followed by British Columbia, Alberta, Quebec, Saskatchewan, Newfoundland and Labrador, Ontario, and others. Beyond these lockdowns having terrible impacts on people's personal lives, social life, just mental health in general, people have actually lost their jobs, people have lost their businesses, their livelihoods. I mean, I remember when I'm in Montreal, when I lived there, basically all of my favorite restaurants closed, totally gone, never to see them again, never to able to enjoy them ever again. And this is the thing that was happening all over Canada as well. And talking about this most recent curfew implementation for New Year's Eve, I just think about what is actually happening in the restaurants right now. Usually you make huge supply orders so that all these dinners can be made. So I think it was a little too late to cancel these orders, so there's probably a lot of food being wasted, a lot of money being lost by these restaurants. I don't know how any restaurant that stayed open is going to continue staying open, because they don't even have an idea of when they might open again. My prediction is it's going to be like last time. It might take till spring once again, and that's many months away. I don't see how these businesses can rely on takeout. Jordan Peterson also took notice of what's happening in Quebec. He tweeted, "Private gatherings prohibited. The cure is far worse than the disease. Unbelievable. Time for civil disobedience." And then in a follow-up tweet, he said, "Come on, Montrealers, have some courage. Defy these prohibitions." And something I'm actually noticing are people I know that are still in Montreal who didn't really take too much issue with the curfew last year or the restrictions last year are taking a lot more issue with it this time around. They're speaking out on their social medias about how ridiculous it is. Some people I know want to engage in the protests against these curfews, and these were people who before didn't have too much of a problem. They thought it was ridiculous, but they weren't outspoken yet. They were scared to say anything because of the large popularity that these type of restrictions have in Quebec. But I am noticing a turn. It seems like a lot more, especially young people, are against this because they feel like they've done everything that's been asked. Even the government said with the health pass will bring freedom. I think it brought them the opposite of freedom because look at what's happening. Curfews, lockdowns, everything's closed regardless of your health pass. And that really goes to show that places in the US and other places around the world that are now implementing these health passes didn't even work in Quebec. And Quebec was, one of the earlier places to implement these type of policies and to have such high shot rates. So obviously these passes aren't working the way that I think these governments wanted, but I don't even know if that's exactly what was the point of them. It just seems ridiculous, and the Quebec government seems like they're not going to move away from the health pass regardless of it creating curfews again or by their own doing them, putting curfews. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens tonight, and if there is any protest, be sure to follow me on Twitter and all of my other social medias because I will be sure to be covering that, and I know people who are going, so if there are any videos to be had, I will be posting them. You can follow me everywhere at TheMarieOakes, and thank you guys for watching. Have a good one.